Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 54th Stately Office Hours. This is where us, the team at Stately, talk to you about what we've been working on with the Stately Studio and on XState. We answer any of your questions and we give you demos. Oh, and have we got demos for you today? We were just going through the amount of stuff we've got to talk about this week, and there is so much. So if you want to join us, you can, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can ask us questions in the comments. You can ask us a question in our Discord. We have a dedicated office hours channel. That Discord is at discord.gg/xdate. We are also streaming live on LinkedIn. You can ask us questions on there and I'll try to pick them up. And we are also streaming live on Twitch. We are streaming everywhere, regardless of the social media platforms and how much people are leaving them or joining them or switching around. So let's get started with team introductions. This is what we do every week, so you can get to know us a little bit better. I'm Laura, and I do advocacy for Stately. I'm going along the row. So Fazad, how about you?
Hey, Farzad here. I do engineering, and I mainly work on a Stately studio.
And David.
Hey, I'm David, founder of Stately, creator of XState. That's it.
And I'm going to go left to right with Mateusz.
Hi, I'm Mateusz, and I'm a software plumber at Stately.
And Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin, working on engineering. I'm mostly in the Stately studio as well.
And last but not least, the person who's been putting in a lot of work today, Anders.
Hey, I'm Anders. I'm doing all sorts of software infrastructure, lumberjacking at Stately.
Fixing things when they break, rescuing people when they're struggling.
Breaking things myself, yeah.
So I think without further ado, let's get started on the demos. Let's start off with you, Fazad, because this is something you've been working on for a long time. We've discussed it before in previous office hours. We've even demoed it before, but it's finally available to everyone. Do you like to talk about the assign actions and the context?
Yeah, so this is fun because this was a feature that I worked on a long time ago, for a long time. And as you said, we demoed this on office hours like a couple of times. We talked about it a lot of times. So today, I'm happy to say that this is enabled on the production for everybody. I think it's enabled, right, Anders? Or maybe it's not yet.
Should be.
Should be, yeah, okay. So if you go to a machine view, regardless of being logged in or not, or seeing a machine on the project, or being on the web playground, which is /studio/new URL, you would see this little icon here that represents the context of your machine, but it only represents the schema. So you can define the initial value and the type of the values that go into the context of the machine here. You get like a full feature TypeScript with support for TypeScript, Monaco editor here that you can just dump the context that you have already in the code or write the object or something. Let's just say there's a string here and there's a number here, and then hit save, and this will create the schema of the machine context for you. And this is also very useful because if you go on and use a machine and along the way need to create assignment action creators for your machines, then we will respect the schema and then try to identify the keys in the machine context, and then probably act a little smart and guide you through the right types and sort of shallow validations. So let's say that we have a video player machine here that starts from a paused state, and on the play event, it transitions to the playing state. And this is a state in which we want to take care of a key named remaining seconds in the context of the machine. So basically, this will represent the seconds that we have left to the end of the video. And we want to keep that in the context of the machine. So normally, how you would do it is you would go on and create an entry action. And if you open the state node form here in the right panel, or the toolbox, as Nick calls it, you would not only see the custom tab for any sort of custom serialized action, any name that you can throw at an action. You would also see another tab called Assign, which is a special assignment action creator. This maps exactly to the assign keyword in XState. So the key would be remaining seconds. And well, like if you have used XState before, you know that you can pass a callback here based on the current value of remaining seconds in the context. So we want remaining seconds in the context, whatever it is, to decrement for 1. Because imagine that we started with 431 seconds, and that's the remaining seconds to the end of the video, and we want to decrement that every second. And you don't want to probably do that on an entry. You probably want to add a self event here and then make it like a delayed transition, sort of like a set interval every 1 second, and then add the transition action here saying remaining seconds can be, I have a little typo here, CTX, remaining seconds minus 1. So every second we decrement that for 1. And if you go on and use the third icon in this menu, you can see that you have options to export the code of the machine into XState config, like the config that you can pass and use with XState along the other tools that you use with JSON, JavaScript, and TypeScript. So let's just take a look at the TypeScript and see that inside playing state, we have an after transition that every second it targets the playing state, which is the same state, and there's an action here that assigns remaining seconds to whatever it was minus 1. So this is basically it. But we're not validating this yet, but we expect these remaining seconds to be present in the machine schema, because otherwise we don't know how to generate the type for the schema of the machine for that key in the context. So we would have remaining seconds as, let's just start it with some random value here. Of course, ideally, you want it to come up with a prop or something from some external resource. But let's just say that we want to tell the machine that this is an of-type number. So that's basically it. That's the gist of assignments and actions and context in the XState Studio today.
And you gave a sneaky peek there of a different new feature that people are going to be really excited about in that code view. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the next feature, and that will be import from code. Now, this is a very, very useful feature because it's really annoying to just go on and recreate the machine visually, especially if you have the machine already or partially in the code. So I worked on this feature, a little feature here that you can use it in different ways. Let's just start from the left panel here. You can right-click on any machine here in the list and click import from code, and paste an actual code of an XState machine in here, import it, and we will generate the diagram for you. Let's go to Stately Studio Discover page. Let's pick something that has under 10 states, and let's see, like, I mean, any random machine will do. So we just go on here, we will export the code, and imagine, I'm using the Discover page here, but imagine this is a code that you already have in your code base. I'm going to paste it here, import it as JSON, and voila. We have the machine here. This is going to be super useful if you want to go back and forth between the code and the diagram using a Stately editor. And we saw that earlier that you can use import code from here, but there are also other ways to do it. And another way to do it would be to come here and click import, which will give you the same model basically. But this is useful if you want to update an already made machine or already created machine using code. But what if you want to create a new machine with code? Well, in that case, you would go on and use the left panel as you would do usually, and you create a new machine from code. For example, it will be the name of the machine. There's a little switch element here, import code. You can check that on and then paste the code here and then create a machine with the definition. And we will.
I didn't even know about that feature. That's really cool.
It is. This is going to be super used by the team ourselves in the XState Studio. And when we develop features, we really want to, test things real fast and real quick. This is going to be really, really useful for us. I hope that everybody feels the same way.
I certainly do.
That's about it.
Straight after this, I'm going to take a machine that Kevin and I worked on yesterday in the development view that it's the staging server, and I'm going to put it public so that everyone can play with it and see it.
Oh, that'll be really
nice. I'll be able to do that by importing the code. That is really handy.
That's really nice. I also I tried to be a little smarter and add some meaningful error messages in case your definition is invalid, and probably tell you, hey, if you've forgotten to use create machine in the code that you're pasting for us to import, or if there is any sort of invalid transition or something like that, something wrong with the definition you're pasting. I try to throw meaningful errors so that we don't confuse the end user when they're trying to import a machine from code. But I'm sure there would be cases in which you get like some random general purpose error. So we're here always to support. Just hit us on Discord or Canny or somewhere else.
And can people use that to import machines that they built with the previous visualizer, the Stately Viz?
Definitely. So let's just go on and create a machine from Viz. And let's go to the Discover page again. Discover page is really, really handy if you want to play around. Okay. Play around with the machine that other people created. You can choose a source as Viz here, which are the machines that were primarily created using the Stately visualizer instead of the editor. Let's just go under 10 states. Oh, we don't have that. Nice. Okay, so we have a URL problem here that we need to fix. I would rather go back to the previous filters. Let's just use the form input that machine that Matt created. And let's create this machine here. Yeah. I think it
That's
worked.
so cool.
Yes, I think it worked. Where did it go? Let me just use another one. Maybe it hit some sort of bug or something. Customer machine. All right. Another machine, and then hit this. And yes, it worked. Nice. And then you can also straight up use the simulate machine on that too. Simulate mode on the machine you created. Yeah, it works basically on any code that already works with XState config and XState machines. Just paste it here, create a machine with it, or update an already machine.
So this is a really great way. If people have just been using XState without any visual aspect whatsoever in their work, they are able to bring their machines into the visualizer and edit them and play with them from there.
I agree. Yeah. I gave a sneak peek into an experiment today to the team internally that I took this feature to the next level and experimented with bidirectional editing on the web instead of the VS Code extension. A simpler version of that, so you can also edit the code while generating diagram or the other way. And it already works, but we don't have any plans to get it into releasing right now. But the potential is there.
But the import feature itself, Cedric asked, just to be sure, it's not available right now.
Import, yeah, it's in the review process. We're going to have to test it internally and then prepare it for a future release. Hopefully, we're close to that.
Yeah, not far off. We have a lot of features in the pipeline that are sort of they're in a queue to get out right now to be tested and get out. So speaking of which, David, would you like to talk to us about metadata?
Yes, absolutely. Also, you might have noticed in Farzad's machines that now the lines are rendered under the nodes, and so it makes for a little bit of a cleaner appearance. So just a small little detail.
You can show that in your we'll have to show that with your demo too.
Well, so my machine isn't nearly as complicated as the others, but you could see that now the edges are underneath. And so the design direction that we took was that when you have an edge that's originating from a node, there's a small gap here. And so same thing when it's connecting to a node, there's a small gap here. This is some of the work done by Nick, our awesome designer. And so now when you have states that overlap that, or even other edges, you're not going to see this line overlap. So it makes for a lot cleaner appearance, even if like when you're importing machines from visualizers, things could get a little messy. We're going to be working on auto layout for that soon, but at least the edges don't overlap the nodes. But that's not what I'm here to show. So I'm here to show a new feature. Not sure if you can see that. Let's zoom in. Thankfully, we have zoom in over here. So it's called metadata. Now, if you've used XState before, you might be used to just adding some metadata. And if you're not, metadata is a great way of adding, exactly as the name implies, some extra data that's static and that's relevant to the to this nodes or even the edges that you're working with. And so you'll see in the bottom here, we now have a metadata form. It shows key and value. So let's say that, for another view, I want to put maybe some layout information. So layout and layout A. So when I tab, you're going to notice that it adds quotes to it. And that's because this is actually a special input. It's a JSON input. So ideally, you would write JSON in there. But of course, with strings, it's a little bit cumbersome to add those quotes. So it does it for you. And so when you hover over it, you could see it's interpreting it as a string. And so now we could say like version, for instance, and let's just call this version 5. And so it's going to say, OK, that's a number. And so because this is a JSON layout, you also have Boolean values. So we could say that that's true. It's Boolean. And so if you, have anything else like true for sure, then it's just going to say, I don't recognize that JSON value, so we're just going to make it a string. So yes, it does recognize that. And also, you could quotes or not to be, and that is going to keep your quotes. And so it does the smart thing when it comes to quotes. In fact, if we just go a little crazy here, it's going to escape it properly for you. So that's just getting into some edge cases. How does this render though? With Farzad's work on exporting to code, this is how this is going to look when we actually go to the code view. In JSON, you're going to see that metadata over here in exactly the same JSON types that you would expect: numbers, Booleans, strings, etc. And this is also in the JavaScript and the TypeScript views. So now you could use your metadata and output it to code. So yeah, that is the upcoming metadata feature. We are still in the review process for this. We're going to be adding it to nodes, edges, and also maybe adding a nice feature where if you copy and paste some JSON into the metadata field, it'll just autofill the fields. I was talking about that with Farzad yesterday. And also another small feature you might have noticed, now when you select an edge, so I'm going to zoom out a bit, you're going to see that only the source and target nodes highlights. So it gives you a little bit more clarity on the nodes that you're working with. So if we go here, you could see that only these two states highlight. Or if you select multiple states, or sorry, multiple edges, then only the relevant ones are going to highlight. So it just makes it a lot easier, in my opinion, to work with.
That's so cool. I hadn't really even thought about the fact that you'd added it, but I'd been using it and being like, what? How? This is somehow so much easier to read, and I'm not sure why. That's why.
Yeah, and fun fact, we are dog fooding our own dog food, so we are using state machines. And so one of the important parts of this feature is that when you're trying to switch a source or a target node, everything should highlight again until you drop it here. So yeah.
Nice. Very cool. As General Sal says, there's no need for a connection from Mastodon back to Twitter. That's a reference to your machine there.
You caught that.
And David, I know that we don't have a demo for this, but would you be able to tell us a little bit about revisions? Because that's a feature that we've been working on too.
Yeah, so another feature that we are working on, and it is getting close to release, is revisions. And so I have been wanting to use this so many times, but when you're working on a machine and you make some changes to it, and then you're like, you know what, I actually want to revert back to some previous changes, there really is no way of going back in time besides, hopefully pressing undo a bunch of times, but that doesn't really work if you're exiting out of your browser tab and then going back in, or if you're sharing it with someone else. So we're introducing a feature, within the next few weeks called revisions, which allows you to specify different what we call revisions or snapshots of machines. And so you could go back in history and say, okay, I actually want a previous version of this machine. And in the future after that, you're going to be able to compare between different versions of machines. And so we're still working out the design and details on that one, but it's going to be very useful for anyone, especially if you use tools where you do expect to go back in history and see what changes you've made. And so that's going to be one of our first steps towards actually having full automated workflows in the Stately Studio.
It's going to be really useful in the future for collaboration as well. If you've got multiple people working on a machine, it's really handy to have those revisions in there for when your teammate comes in and breaks everything.
Exactly.
That's me on the team, coming in and breaking everyone else's machines. So we have a question that's actually related to the workflows, and this came from Whiskey Standard in our, where did I put it? In our Discord. I seem to have nixed the question. I can remember it off the top of my head. The server, oh no, I can't remember.
I'm so sorry. I think I was the one who deleted that. I'm so sorry.
It is not a problem. Serverless workflows. That's what it was. So Whiskey Standard on our Discord in our office hours channel asked are there any updates on the canny feature that's been requested for serverless workflows that we've marked as planned?
Yeah, so we have many things in progress. We're starting small and then eventually building more features that are going to be more and more relevant to these serverless workflows. So the first one, of course, like we mentioned, is revisions. Also with the metadata, we are going to be using those types of things for built-in actions and also for invoked actors. And so when you think of a serverless workflow, you could think of like many existing tools as doing steps, and when like you would call a service and then that service would transition to a next step, et cetera, et cetera. And so you need to be able to pass, parameterized data into those steps. I think other tools call them integrations or connections or things like that. So these are the building blocks for serverless workflows. And I think one of the next steps that we're going to do is work on sort of a simulation mode. So the simulation mode you see right now is more of a walkthrough through the graph. So it's basically just being able to traverse each of the transitions and go from state to state. Now, actually running and executing this is a completely different story. So I think that's going to be one of our first experiments towards just having actual serverless workflows. And so next year, we're going to be experimenting with that a lot more. One of our guiding principles is that the code that is generated from these workflows is code that you should own and you should be able to deploy wherever you want. Of course, we're going to find ways to make that easiest for you. So yeah, just I guess, keep an eye out for it.
And next up, something that Kevin has been working really hard on, many things that Kevin has been working really hard on recently. You seem to have your finger in many features, is moving machines. This is quite a common feature request as well, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, that's right, Laura. First of all, I have to apologize for the background noise, which I have no control over, so I'll try to keep this rather brief. But we saw the great demo by Farzad about importing, and just like that, moving machines and moving projects is something that I know I really wanted to do, and I think it's really useful. And so just for some context, currently we've had forking of machines for a long time, and so if you want to essentially move a machine from project to project, you sort of have to fork the machine to another project and then go back and remember to delete the machine. So right now, we're going to have, or very soon, we're going to have the ability to actually move machines to other projects that are your projects, let's say in the My Projects. But also, if you're a member of a team, or if you even own your own teams, then you're able to move things from My Projects out to those teams, and even from teams to other teams that you are able to edit. And this is really going to be a very flexible way of working because, of course, you're able to share the work easily. And if you do also have a pro subscription, for example, you could actually have private machines that you work on, personally, and then when they're ready, you can share them to places to collaborate with your team members. So there's going to be a lot more flexibility in the work routine there, and it's going to apply not only for machines but also to projects as well.
Fabulous. That's going to be so helpful. I think that's something that we in the team could really find useful as well when we're frequently firing up new teams and new projects, trying everything out and being able to move those machines, the all-important machines that we don't want to lose between those projects. It's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, it's something that's also been requested by members of the community as well. So that's good.
Yeah, we are absolutely listening to all of your requests, folks. That's a good reminder that if you have a feature request, you can go to statelyai.canny.io. There we have a place where you can request features. You can see a roadmap of the features that we have planned, that we have in progress, that we've completed as well. And you can also upvote on other people's feature requests too, which gives us a really good idea of what to prioritize in the development process so that we can make the studio as great a tool as we can for everyone. And speaking of which, another commonly requested feature, which I have requested as well, is the ability to sign in with services that aren't GitHub. So I'm just going to give you a little demo of that right now. Share my screen. There we go. And this is currently on a branch, but it's very soon to be deployed. And so if you go to sign in at the moment, you will get the option to sign in automatically with your GitHub login. But now we are going to have the option, let me make that a little bit bigger, to sign in with Google, if that is your sign-in of choice, with Twitter, or with email if you're one of those people like me who prefers not to sign in with social sign-in, because a lot of the time I honestly can't remember which service I signed up with. So it's nice to just use email and be able to remember that. But it just means that we have any option that suits you. There are also other options for these. So there are other social services available. And if you have a particular social service that you use in order to sign in that you would like to use for the studio, please let us know. We'd love to know. We don't want to add a million options right now, but if there are ones that people particularly use and like, that would be really good to hear from you about that. Anders, is there anything that you wanted to say about this, given that you worked so hard on it and I'm the one demoing it?
No, you're doing great. I mean, hopefully we'll release this next week so people can start logging in from multiple providers.
Yeah, I'm going to get in there quick and be logging in like that. So next up, if he is available to do so, Matish, you've been working so hard, relentlessly, some may say, on the XState extension recently. Would you be able to give us some demos of what you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, if you just switch to what you want to demo, I will add you up. Sure. There we go.
Yeah, so basically I was working through the past weeks and months actually on improving the bidirectional editing experience. So like one of the most annoying things with editing in the VS Code extension that was reported by many was that you can easily lose stuff in your config, like comments, inline implementations, and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the goal of my work, and I started from making the whole extension to work offline, which for obvious reasons I can't really demo, but I hope it will be a nice change too for many. And yeah, like when it comes to bidirectional edits, so for example, previously you would just lose stuff like that, and we could actually see a blink of nice thing added by Anders. You can see here that we now just inform you about problems in the code, because whenever there is a problem in the code, we can't actually do what we want properly. Like we can't really sync properly changes done in the editor to the code, because we need to understand what is here in your whole file. And if you just like make a syntax error, then we just can't analyze that really. This was previously swollen, and you could end up with some accidental bugs. Right now, we just display an error to you, and yeah, it should be much more obvious that that you should just correct that error first, and then continue working. But yeah, previously you would basically, whoa, I can't type. you would probably lose this comment whenever you would touch the thing here. So either when you just reposition things or if you just change its name. Right now, everything gets preserved as much as we just can do that. There are probably some edge cases that we can't as easily cover, but like most of the things should really be covered here. And if you for example add sorry, that's on in here, yeah. So if I just add a action to this idle state, I can just type it here, whatever I want. And you can also notice that that the editor doesn't blink. Previously, we were just like redrawing it constantly whenever anything has changed in your source code. Right now, we just detect changes in the config itself. So we just try to optimize the redundant updates, and also like annoying ones because everything was just blinking. And yeah, you can just type here stuff and it also won't blink and stuff like that. So that's a nice improvement as well. I've done a lot of work related to like keeping a single source of truth in our implementation. So like a whole class of bugs should just go away. There were cases when code lenses were not able to actually like get your current config, so you could display in the editor something stale a little bit and stuff like that. Everything related to those kind of problems has been fixed. Something that I wasn't able to like fully verify, but I have a strong reason to believe that I have actually fixed is that typegen information should be updated within Visual Studio Code immediately. Many of you reported in the past that that you had, for example, open a typegen file for the VS Code to pick up the change made by the extension, or just like restart TS server and stuff like that. Right now, by using VS Code APIs to actually override the content of the typegen file, I strongly believe that those sort of problems should just go away. What else? Keyboard interactions got fixed. Previously, you wasn't able, for example, even do pretty basic stuff like selecting the whole text in an input. Right now, everything gets correctly like propagated within the editor and to the VS Code extension. So it also wasn't possible to, for example, use some VS Code hotkeys like for closing tabs. Right now, I can just press Command and W and close the editor. Yeah, and one also like nice improvement is that by reworking some internals, I am able to close that machine here. I am able to just edit it here, and it should actually be picked up by this file here. So you can see that it has been synced correctly to the file, whereas previously that update would be just lost if you would close the source file with editor still being open and stuff like that. There are still a couple of smaller bugs that we are working on, but I really hope to release that next week. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, as soon as next week. That's amazing, given how much you've been working on all of this. I know that it has been a long, hard road. I've heard that working on VS Code extensions is incredibly difficult to begin with, and you've really been dealing with some gnarly stuff in there. So yay, everyone's going to be so happy to... It almost feels like using an entirely new extension with how smoothly and how well it works now.
Yeah, that's my hope. Still queuing and fixing bugs, but it should. The hope is that the whole experience should be much more revamped, and that we will be also able to just add features and improvements quicker from now on.
And if folks find bugs once this new release has come out, because I'm sure we'll still be spotting edge cases and bugs at that point, where's the best place for them to report them?
That would be stately/XState tools repository on GitHub. So where the Visual Studio Code extension source code lives. And yeah, you can report bugs there or just ping me on Discord or on Twitter. I don't sleep, so I'll get to you.
Oh, fabulous. And just like that, magic URL. As Martin says, so many quality of life improvements. It's amazing work, really great work. Is there anything else that the team wanted to talk about this week?
So I think two things, not really demoable, but the first one was we migrated over to tRPC, and I think Honors could talk a little bit more about that. But the quality of life improvement for users is going to be better performance, better caching, and just it was a huge refactor, so we were very excited to do that.
Yeah. And does anyone who is watching us live have any questions that they want to ask us? Of course, you can ask us in the Office Hours channel on our Discord, which is at discord.gg/xstate. You can ask us on Twitter. You can ask us on LinkedIn. You can ask us on Twitch. You can ask us here.
Oh, one more thing. So again, the last thing that's not really demoable yet, but we do have tentative Safari support.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry, I completely missed that off the agenda today when you've been working so hard on it.
Yeah, so that was a huge refactor, and actually, let me see if I could demo it, or if someone has it pulled up. I didn't really think to to do this, but this has been one of the biggest requests, and also a little bit of a sore spot because people are like, what year is this? Why are we restricting browsers? And I completely agree, we shouldn't be necessarily restricting browsers. So I have it over here. Good old Safari. And so now you could see this is Safari. And so we have tentative support. Like, we still have a few things to fix, but you could see that most everything is there and working and looking great. And we still have the ability to to zoom in, zoom out. Safari's a little weird with pointer events and for panning and stuff like that. Those are things that we are still working on. But these are things that we're hopefully going to get fixed before the release. And so what's interesting about this is it looks like, nothing really changed. And that's exactly the point, because actually a lot of things changed. Now we're rendering nodes as SVG inside of HTML instead of HTML inside of SVG. And this is a very important change for Safari because Safari does not play very well with foreign object support. This, by the way, is the same technique that TLDraw is using, especially in their new rendering engine. And so if you aren't familiar with TLDraw, I highly recommend you check it out, because maybe in the future we will be integrating it. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, so in the near future, you are going to be able to use this in Safari browsers if Safari is your main driver, as I know it is. I know it is for many. And in the future, maybe on your iPad once we enable touch controls. So that would be very cool as well.
I actually tested it today on my iPhone.
Really?
It works okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a conflict between the pointer events and which handler, wins the race, but it works.
Okay.
That makes it more of a game.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like you have to really nail the pointers. Do you really want to drag to make an event, or do you really want to pan the canvas?
Well, there are lots of little tweaks we worked on, but I think we might end up releasing it with a sort of a "this is beta" notice up there, mightn't we, David? So people can get trying it out and testing it soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it does feel lovely. I've been playing with it too.
I actually added a banner to Safari only, so that you have to click it explicitly on a button to say, I understand that I'm entering a dangerous zone.
The danger zone, Safari.
Yeah, it's not going to lose anything that you're working on. It just that some of the interactions might be a little tricky while we're working out these tiny little differences between the browsers. As
Yeah, the browser-
Hidasiel says, it's really tricky sometimes to make a feature work on Safari.
That's true. And Hudisiel, he worked also on TLDraw, so I'm sure he knows this very, very well.
Amazing. This is wrapped in a big div, right? Not canvas.
Yes, it is. It is HTML and SVG, and there's many reasons we chose that. Both it makes it easier to develop. Canvas gets a little bit tricky sometimes, and also we do want to make this accessible. And you know, making things accessible in Canvas is very, very difficult. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're all about that. Cedric asks, is it possible to support IE8? Get away with you, man.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and Matt says, next thing we know, we'll be able to create state machines on an iPad. That is totally
Yes.
one of the things we are working towards. That is the point.
It's one of the dreams. Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, so exciting. We've had so much to share with you all this week. Next week, I think hopefully a lot of these features will be with you already. So you'll have them to play with, because we won't have any office hours next week because it is Thanksgiving for those of you in the US. And so the rest of us will be taking a week off, just a week off doing office hours. We will still be working while the Americans are on holiday. And so we will catch you again on the 2nd of December. That's when the next office hours will be. I will get I'll get the stream ready to go after this one so that you'll be able to subscribe to be notified about that. It's a really useful feature that they have there on YouTube and LinkedIn that you can sign up ahead of time, and it reminds you. You don't have to look out for the reminders that I put out on Twitter and on Discord as well. So, folks, anything else that you wanted to share this week before we go into a week off?
Just
Stunned
one
silence.
Just one thing. We're planning to work on a lot of examples and documenting patterns.
Yes.
From the questions that we answer on Discord. This is going to go, I think, hopefully along the new docs that Anders and Laura have been working on for a long time. So just hit us with the examples, the example board on Canny. If you find anything that's still confusing, if you need examples, just modeling examples, basically anything, just open a request there and we'll consider that. Yeah.
Kevin and I have been starting to look at some of those examples that you've put up on the Canny board as well. And so we've just started making one of those as a machine this week. We're doing it, starting to do a regular feature where we play with machines between the two of us and do modeling and work out the best way, or one of the best ways to model these particular problems. So it would be really interesting to hear what you're looking for in terms of examples.
Mm-hmm. Also, with regard to all the turmoil in the social media space, make sure that you're subscribed to us on YouTube. Don't know where the subscribe button is, or if you're not watching this on YouTube, then I don't know, go on YouTube. And so youtube.com/StatelyAI, we are going to be posting a lot more video content. And this is going to be shared on LinkedIn, Twitch, etc., maybe some other social media platforms. But yeah, expect more from us.
Absolutely.
And one more thing is, since we're going to be taking a week off for Thanksgiving holiday, I'd like to just say that I think we're all very thankful for the community and all of you for attending and support that you show us and the enthusiasm you have. So thanks.
Absolutely. Very well said, Kevin. I 100% agree. These office hours would not be what they are without you. And the way that we build the studio and we work on XState wouldn't be the same without all of your input. It really does help us out a huge amount and helps us retain our enthusiasm for working on these problems. It's so nice when you feel like you're helping solve things for other people as well. As Cedric says, thank you, everyone. Super team. It was a good session. So I think that is a lovely note to wrap up on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As Kevin says, you make it what it is. We look forward to seeing you again on the 2nd of December. And I hope those of you who are having a holiday have a very great one. Speak to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.